Welcome to the Talkin VAWLS Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. Tennessee off today. Going to be a big weekend, huge weekend for Tennessee football. The guys going to be putting on full pads. That's when everything kind of ramps up to that next level. Also, it's going to be a huge recruiting weekend for Tennessee. Put out a huge update yesterday on the channel. If you missed that video, go back, give it a watch. Talked about some of the guys that are going to be on campus, elite level talent, top 100 type guys are going to be in town. But no practice today. I thought I would jump on and talk a little week one recap as we get ready to head into, again, full pads tomorrow. The first scrimmage will be next Wednesday. And I think that's when some of these competitions start to take shape. And I don't think, anybody really wins a job in the spring, but that's when you can kind of solidify yourself at the top of the depth chart. You're going to roll into fall and you're going to be competing for a starting job. And that's what makes this football team better, right? Competition, iron sharpens iron. We say that all the time. Maybe it's a little cliche, but it's the truth. And Joey Holzley talked about that yesterday. Going to play a clip from him here in just a moment and kind of talk about that, how this roster, man, it's so much different going into year 4 of the Josh Heupel era than it was when he arrived on campus. There wasn't really competitions when he arrived on campus. You had a long snapper out there at linebacker because the roster was depleted. But here going into year 4, I think the roster is moving in the right direction. But we're going to talk about spring. As always, do me a favor, smash the thumbs up just below the video. You guys know the deal. It's quick, free, easy. It helps the channel. If you're new to the Talkin VAWLS Network, welcome. We're not experts. We're not insiders. We're not media. We don't pretend to be any of that. This channel is for the fans, by the fans. If you like what we do, subscribe, click that bell for notifications. You won't miss out when we go live or when we drop a video. We're going to be live on Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's a fan call-in show where the members of the channel get to come on, hang out, and talk about what excites you throughout spring camp so far. And make sure your memberships are up to date. If not, you can hit that join button down below for as little as $1 and come hang out, talk some Tennessee football with us on Sunday night. But let's start with a little bit of bad news. This came out late yesterday evening. Freshman Caleb Beasley suffers setback in spring drills. You can scroll down here and see fractured fibula on Thursday morning. Now, the unfortunate part about this, the way college football is in 2024, a lot of early enrollees. We saw it with Nico, and it's such an advantage. You get to come in, you get to go through bowl practice, you get to enroll in January, you start taking college courses a semester early, getting your feet wet, understanding what these coaches want in a practice. And then you're hearing about some of the young freshmen already making splash plays, already starting to flash. But the unfortunate part about Caleb Beasley, he wasn't an early enrollee. He had to put some work in. I read from an article over at Vols 247, said that he and Edwin Spillman crammed 2 quarters of high school into half the time in order to show up post-spring break so they could take, again, it's not an early enrollee. It's not a summer enrollee. They arrived just in time for the start of second session spring classes. But they put in the work, man, because Caleb Beasley, Edwin Spillman, they wanted to get a leg up on the competition, and just an unfortunate circumstances for Caleb Beasley. The good news is he will be back 100% by summer, and then also rolling into fall camp, he'll be good to go. Caleb Beasley going to be in the meeting room. He's still going to be learning. He's still going to be around this football team, but still unfortunate for Caleb Beasley. Now, something that was interesting, mentioning Edwin Spillman, he's a guy that got a little buzz from practice yesterday doing a pass protection drill. Had to be called down by the coaches. Why? Because he is violent. He is physical. Edwin Spillman has one gear, and that's 100 miles per hour. He looked good. He flashed in practice yesterday. Again, in the practice report, said the coaches had to say, hey, let's chill just a little bit. Let's work a little on our technique. But you like to hear that, man. You like to hear that these guys are out there competing the way Josh Heupel would like to say, straining and competing. But let's talk about another area where there is a competition, and that is the wide receiver position. It excites me to see young Braylon Staley out there making plays. He's a guy that did so much his senior season of high school. His stock went through the roof. It seemed like every Saturday morning you'd wake up, you'd scroll through Twitter, and there's his pops, Brian Staley, on there tweeting out the latest plays from Friday Night Lights where Braylon Staley is torching people. Now we're seeing him do it in spring practice. Mike Matthews, also a guy that's flashing. A couple of true freshmen. Can they make moves? Josh Heupel talks a lot about, we want want to rotate wide receivers. Going back to when Alex Golish was the offensive coordinator, he said, we're going to rotate 6-7 guys. They've never done it. They've always stuck with a 3-man wide receiver crew, not very little rotation. And I think a lot of that has to do with the tempo, right? You got to have the confidence that you can leave a guy out there for an entire series versus having to slow things down to substitute. But Josh Heupel said again, they see maybe 6 guys. Can Braylon Staley? Can Mike Matthews? Can they push for a spot? I think, they're electric, and that's why when you look at the overall roster, the level of talent is climbing up. You're closing the gap between the Georgias and the Alabamas. But those guys give you a little glimpse into the future of this program. But you talk about the competition. What about that outside wide receiver opposite of Brew McCoy? Brew McCoy on his way back should be 100% by summer, so that's encouraging. That's exciting. But who's going to compete for that outside spot? And what does competition mean? Let's take a listen to what Coach Joey Holzley had to say about the wide receivers, the young freshman wide receivers, and the competition yesterday after practice.
Yeah, we got a lot of talented young players. Similar to the last question, a lot of it is just learning how to play the way we play, playing with speed, playing with tempo, and not letting that slow you down on the back end where you're trying to figure out what to do. That's been the challenge for all the young position players is while you're going out there and trying to figure it out, cut it loose. Like, you have to cut it loose. You can't make mistakes half speed or we can't gain anything from it. So that's been our huge coaching point at every position. But we got a lot of young, talented wideouts. The competition is awesome. It's one of the best I've seen in spring break. There's not a lot of solidified guys going. It's everybody out there fighting for a spot. So rep after rep after rep, you're getting everything from somebody. Nobody's pulling back thinking like, I kind of got this spot. I can take a couple reps off. Everybody's fighting to get on the field, which does nothing but increase the level of play on the field.
That's what we're looking for, competition. We've got it in that wide receiver room, and I think that's going to benefit those wide receivers. We've got it on the defensive line. I'm going to get into that in just a second. We need that on the offensive line. I think that is a position group where we desperately need that. In the secondary, I think you may have some of that in the linebacking unit, right? I mean, I think you've got Keenan Peely, who's going to be kind of your leader of that room. But then where does Arian Carter fit in? Where does Jeremiah Thielander, Jalen Smith, Caleb Perry, Elijah Herring, a lot of guys that are going to be fighting for playing time. I think, Tim Banks has shown what he likes to do is rotate too deep at the linebacker position. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on. But the bottom line is competition breeds success. That's why, Jake Merklinger, George McIntyre, those two guys, once Nico's off in the NFL, those two guys are going to be competing. Guess who wins? We win, because the guy who wins the job, the guy who's the better quarterback, is going to be playing at the University of Tennessee. If the other guy enters the transfer portal, then so be it. As far as the outside wide receiver, Dante Thornton, man, he had a good practice this week. Also, sounds like he's put on a little weight. VolQuest reporting that his confidence is up. Chris Brazell, I've seen him struggling a little bit. You guys want to disagree with me? Put it in the comment section. I still think the ceiling is high for Chris Brazell, but it's something to keep an eye on. Does he continue struggling with drops? Because we talked about this last spring. Look, it's spring. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Then we saw these wide receivers struggling to catch the football throughout the year. So just something to keep an eye on. Something else that's got me giddy, man. It's got me giddy. That's this quote right here from defensive coordinator Tim Banks.
Yeah, again, I think we should really have the best defensive line in the country. I feel really good about our depth that we're building. I feel really strongly about, their attitude and the determination that those guys have played with. And again, I'm not even talking as much about football, just great guys. They're great human beings, and, they've really worked hard. And, as coaches, we want to see guys develop and reach their full potential.
I love it, man. I think this is the best defensive line unit in the country. When you look at the ones, the twos, the threes from practice earlier this week, James Pierce, Omar Norman-Lott, Omari Thomas, Dominic Bailey. The twos were Joshua Josephs, Elijah Simmons, Bryson Eason, Tyree West. The threes, Caleb Herring, David Hobbs, Jackson Moy, Jason Jenkins. You've got so much talent for Rodney Garner to play with. We know he wants to rotate guys, keep those guys fresh, and that's how you win games like the Texas A&M game last year. They won that game on defense and special teams. Gritty defense, when you can get late into the fourth quarter and your defense can grind on that offensive line and start winning matchups. James Pierce, future #1 draft pick. Put it in the comments if you agree, disagree. I think he's definitely going to be the top defensive player off the board. Enjoy it this year. He's the type of player that can change a game. We saw it in the Iowa game. I love the response from Josh Heupel earlier this week when they talked about James Pierce. They're going to utilize him in different ways. He's going to get a lot of attention from the offensive lines. He's going to get chip blocks. He's going to be double teamed. They're going to utilize him, and we saw it again the Iowa game, dropping back in coverage, led to a pick six. I'm excited about what James Pierce and this defensive line brings to this football team because guess what? They improve your linebacker play. They improve your secondary play. When you can get home just bringing four, all of a sudden Tim Banks has a lot that he can play with back there in that defense. So that's encouraging. What are you excited about? Obviously, Nico. It's the Nico era. Nico taking over at quarterback. I think the running back room is going to be pretty good. I'm encouraged by the offensive line. I think the starting five, once you get Spraggs back, I think they're going to be really good. It's what I worry about is depth. Now, a couple of young guys, Gage Ginther, Jesse Perry, also reports at practice that they are playing good football for true freshmen, not guys that you're going to lean on. I think you've got Max Anderson, William Satterwhite, Bennett Warren. You got a lot of talent at that freshman position, and I think – if you continue to recruit well in the class of 25, and there's a lot of big-time offensive tackles that Tennessee is in on, you add some guys and let those guys start competing, then we can turn this offensive line into what the defensive line unit is. And that's truly how you close the gap between Tennessee to Georgia and to Alabama and some of the elite programs in college football. A little rambling today, but, man, I'm just talking about what I'm excited about. The wide receiver competition is encouraging to me. What the offensive line looks like, that defensive line unit, best in the country, you tell me. You jump into the comment section. Let's talk about it. As always, smash the thumbs up on the way out the door. Go check out the official merchandise of the Talkin VAWLS Network. You can go to bonfire.com/store/Talkin VAWLS. But that is going to do it for this one. We'll have an update tomorrow after practice. Again, full pads starting to ramp up the level of intensity, and then we'll be live Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. But that is going to do it for this one. This is the Talkin VAWLS Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. Go Big Orange.